With other games, this is not that nice for the designers. They are not happy if you find a new way to play the game, because it usually means you found a cheat or an exploit, and that's bad. They do not like it, and they will stop you from, going further in it. At CCP, however, we like it. We want you to use our game in a new way, and usually it's very creative and it deepens the game, it deepens the experience. And if we like it, we will help you. We will support you with new tools and new systems. And a good example is economy. Before I go in there, what you need for emergence, for using the game in a creative new way, is something to build upon. There has to be a start, there has to be a foundation. And you need the room and freedom to expand it. In CCP will give you all the room and freedom to expand EVE in your way. And one of these ways is by the economy. Now, as I've said before, EVE Online is one world. It's not divided in parallel universes where you have the same thing but with different people who are doing the same thing. It's one big persistent universe. And we have one market. The entire market is available for everybody who plays EVE. Again, it's not divided in little bits. It's one big whole. And we have 250,000 people. They create a stable economy. What's up? Okay. Well, 250,000 people create a stable economy. Now, Iceland has 300,000 people, and they have a somewhat stable economy. Then Icelandic krona isn't doing too well lately. And before we had a lot of players, we didn't really feel that it was time to let it go completely. Until then, we had artificial control of the market by having a fake demand in there. We had entities in game who would always be interested in buying something. So that's how we kind of controlled it. But when we had enough players, we thought, well, it should be stable. Let's remove the fake demand. And so we did. And then, really, all items in EVE were player produced. If a player doesn't make it, it doesn't exist. And demand is also in the hands of players. If a player doesn't want to buy it, nobody will buy your ship. And all the goods, everything on the market has the same quality. It's not like one battleship is not as well produced as the other battleship of the same type. So there's no difference. The only difference is price. And that makes it a very realistic economy. So there's realistic market and economy. You might say, well, that's nice, but what does it mean? What can I do with it? Well, a few players discovered that because our market is realistic, a lot of the economic principles apply in EVE as well. And this allowed them to somewhat play the market. They play the market by watching trends, they speculate and invest, and they try to gain a monopoly in certain systems or in certain goods. Like, if two corporations or alliances go to war, they go to war around a certain location. In a war, a lot of ships get lost. That's war in EVE. Everything gets blown up. And people still want to continue the war, so they buy new ships. But if there's war going on, ships are in high demand, and sometimes they're not very close to where you are now, so you have to travel. Well, a smart economic player will see there's a war going on, and he will supply that war using his ships, and they're a bit more expensive, but you don't have to travel very far. And they have all kinds of spreadsheets, and they really watch this, and they try to spark wars to continue selling. And this is the kind of behavior that we didn't plan at for CCP. This was quite a surprise to us how serious they took it, and we helped them by hiring an economist, and he publishes a quarterly economic newspaper. And it's, you need to have done some economics in high school to understand it. It's very complex, I just stick to the blowing people up and boosting the economy. So that's an example of emergent gameplay in Eve. We decided, well, we let go of the economy, and then suddenly it became so much more interesting, a lot more creative, and players really took it to another level. And I say the same can be done with fiction. Because fiction is a start for role players. We give them, the background story of Eve, and they make it their own. They will take everything in, and they will say, okay, this person, my life is made out of, living for my Amar empire. I'm a good Amar citizen, and they take it so far. They make it so deep, and that for us, that is also emergent gameplay. Fiction is also a great excuse for war. I mean, there was a time in Eve when people didn't like it if you just declared war on them for no reason at all. And then fiction was usually a good excuse, saying, well, we hate you Mimitar scum, and we're going to bring your asses back in line. So, it's good. It's there for a reason. Another way fiction is used is it's really the background for your daily activity. As soon as you start Eve, you are a starship pilot. And if you run missions only, the missions alone will also give you information about the world and the universe and how everything works. Of course, fiction is a nice read. You can download the chronicles. I think some players have saved them up and you can download them and read them on your way to work. And in game design and art, we also use fiction, and I'll get back to that later. So, what is fiction? The chronicles, I mentioned it briefly. They are short stories, but a little bit shorter. And we started with chronicles even before Eve was launched. So the universe was there. You were able to read about it before you could even play it, so to speak. And the chronicles from those days were more like Wikipedia entries. They would take a subject and tell you everything about the subject. Here you can see how it looks like. This is about the slaver Hans, and it tells you where they're from, how they look like, and their use. And their use is basically to hunt down the Minotaur scum. So, about 2 years ago, we hired a full-time writer, and since then the chronicles are a lot more narrative. This is the last chronicle to be published. It's about the new wonderful Empress of the Amar, and it tells you about a guy who meets her and is just in awe of her, and there are actually characters in there in these new chronicles. So it's a new way of reading about Eve.